Hey everyone! So today's video is going to be all about expanding your Mother-32 and getting some Eurorack modules. For so many people, the Sound Studio and the Mother are just sort of entry points for getting into Eurorack. I know a lot of people buy them because you have this nice synth voice setup and you get to kind of experience patching, but you might not know quite where to go from there. So that's what this video is all about. I want to give you some ideas that might give you a direction to go down. But before I even start, I want to emphasize that one of the best things about Eurorack and modular synth in general is the fact that everybody's setup is different. There's something that's very personal about the choices of modules that you choose to include in your racks. Many people have different racks for different purposes, and there's really no one right way to do things. These are just modules that I picked out of the modules that I own that could demonstrate some ways that you could incorporate different modules. And one or two of them might be a starting point, but I really recommend that you take some of these ideas and go online, look on Modular Grid, look at different types of modules, and just find ones that seem interesting to you. But with all that said, let's just take these and see if we can get some different approaches. So when you look at all these, you can kind of put it in the framework of they fall into like 4 different categories. Number 1 is audio voices, so they actually produce a sound. Number 2 would be audio processors, like effects or filters, something that colors a sound. Number 3 would be a modulation source, something that creates a control voltage that changes a parameter, some other type of setting. And number 4 would be a modulation processor, or something that controls a modulation source coming from something else. So that's just kind of a nice 4 different categories we can kind of think of things. So the modules that I brought here today, and this was a really tough decision to even decide which modules I should be showcasing, but I have Maths. This Maths is kind of a quintessential Eurorack module. Tons of people have it. It's one of these ones that's kind of hard to wrap your brain around. I have another video explaining it. So if you're interested in it, you should check that out. But basically, this one gives you a tremendous amount of control over control voltages. And you can create all kinds of different cool things and control different settings with it. So that's a modulation source. Now, 2 audio processing modules that I have are cumulus and a filter. This is the Dofer 12 decibel SEM filter. So Cumulus is a Mutable Instruments Clouds clone that's put out by Afterlater Audio. Mutable Instruments modules are all open source, so there's tons of different clones out there. Many of them are done by great manufacturers, and I think you can even find do-it-yourself ones if that's something that interests you. I bought Afterlaters because I asked around. They had a great reputation, and quite frankly, I just liked the style and what it looked like. They also set it up very, very similar to the Mutable Instruments Clouds module, so I actually looked at the Mutable Instruments Clouds module to figure out how it worked and everything. So right now, we have our sequence coming out of the Mother, but let's patch it through Cumulus. So instead of coming out of the VCA, I'm just going to go ahead and plug the VCA into the input of the Cumulus and take my audio out of Cumulus. And there's all kinds of different ways to do this. You could run it through VCAs, but this is just fine for now. So right now, let me turn everything off and then we'll slowly build it back up. So Cumulus is a texture synthesizer. It offers granular processing and reverb, to name just a little bit. Let's go ahead and listen to what this would sound like. So right now there's nothing happening, and I'm going to go ahead and bring in some reverb. So right there, that's just some really, really, really nice reverb that's coming out. Now let's bring in some texture. So I'm going to turn my feedback up, and we'll bring in a little bit of the mix. So that sounds very nice as is. One of the greatest things about Cumulus is that all of these parameters you can modulate. So let's go ahead and use the internal LFO of the Mother to modulate something. And why don't we do the position? So that's pretty cool. So pretty cool. We already got some effects going on. So one of the things we have our filter coming before the effects are happening. But we could use another filter for after the effects if we wanted to. So let's try that. I'm going to take my audio out here and put it into the audio out of the SEM filter. And we'll just send the audio right over into the filter. So then what's fun is that you have this cutoff affecting the tones before it's running through Cumulus, but then you have another filter that's affecting the tones after, post the effect. So you can even turn the pitch up. If you wanted to. And if we wanted to put some subtle modulation on this, we could use something like Maths to do that. Maths does all kinds of crazy stuff, but let's just set it up for a simple LFO. We'll turn the cycle on here, and that's what the LFO looks like. And we can control its delay. We can control its decay and attack through these knobs, creating a nice slow LFO. And then this attenuates that one, so we can control how much of it. So I want it to be very, very subtle. So we're going to take this and we're going to put it into the CV for, let's do this. And see what that sounds like. So this is fully going. But let's turn it down. I just want it to be very subtle. Nice and slow, too. Now also you have to really watch your signal levels. As I'm going through this, I just noticed that I was even clipping a little bit. So I'm going to turn down in my mixer. That should be good. So I got Maths doing this nice slow modulation on the filter. All right, let's see what else we can do. Let's bring in another voice. So Platts is Mutable Instruments Platts. This is kind of like A lot of people consider this like one of the best oscillators you can get. Also, the mutable instrument stuff is super expensive right now because they are no longer producing modules. So you can get clones of Platts as well. And for instance, After Later Audio makes a Platts clone called, I think it's called Pixie. It looks almost exactly like this, but with this kind of coloring. The knobs and the layout is exactly the same. So one thing we can do here, if we want it running the same sequence as what's going on, is we can take the keyboard out and actually put it in volts per octave. Now the sequencer of the Mother is going to be sequencing Platts. So, if we wanted to, we could actually just send in the audio signal from there and just completely bypass the Mother and use it as a sequencer. But let's send Platts into our external audio. Because now the voice of Platts is going to be processed in the same way that the voice of the Mother was. And all you have to do is turn the mix all the way up, and all of a sudden we'll hear Platts as opposed to the Mother. But when you do this, we do also have to tune your oscillators together. So let's just do that right now. So that's Platts. There we go. So now they're in sync. Now you could also make harmonies too, which I'll do in a second. But let's just hear what it sounds like with Platts going. So this is the Mother. And then turn the mix all the way over. And that's Platts. And you can get some sort of mixture of both of them. And Platts actually has quite a few different voices. That's another one for Platts. I'm going to stick to the first one. And Platts really shines when you modulate the timbre and the morph functions, and you have these two attenuators here. So why don't we go ahead and use the other side of maths to do that? We'll come out of option number 4, and we'll have this one be a little bit faster. And we'll plug that into the morph. Maybe not so fast. That sounds pretty cool. Let's tune these a little bit differently. I'm going to tune them by ear real quick. So right now this is just this really cool voice that's Platts and the Mother. All right, let's bring in Pams. So there's a few different things we can do with Pams. Number one is I think it's just nice to have Pams controlling the clock. So we can go ahead and set this. We'll have Pams controlling the clock. That way it'll be... And that way we know exactly the BPM and we can adjust accordingly. But Pams does so much more than just control clocks. It can control all of the different outputs, can be clock synced modulation. So let's have number 2 be some type of stepped voltage. Like that. And we can plug it into, I mean, anything really, but let's go into the morph function. Now I'm noticing that the triangle LFO going into cumulus is kind of intense. So I'm going to actually run that, pull it out of here and run it in an attenuator, which is just going to make it from this huge wave into a much smaller wave. And we'll run that out of the attenuator and back into the position of the cumulus. So that way we can control it a little bit. And while we're here, might as well pull out something else from math and we'll modulate the size of the cumulus. And we'll modulate the texture. We can take Pams. Let's create another random voltage, but this time it won't be stepped. And let's have that go into the mix CV, which controls how much plats and how much is the mother. And this one we'll keep it to a limited amount. And there you go. These are just a collection of modules that are just really fun to patch together and make something cool out of. You know, oftentimes I hear people saying, well, what module should I get? What module should I get? There's no right or wrong answer. Almost anything that you buy, you can patch together with a mother. As you're looking at what you want to buy, think about it in terms of modulation sources, things to control modulation or modulation processing, audio voices, and audio processing, so like effects and filters. What I like about these is that in addition to being able to be patched with the mother, it could also just function as its own synth. You could have Platts be its own regular voice, and you could, since it has an internal envelope, you could just run it entirely without the mother at all. But there's tons of other things like envelopes and VCAs and just all kinds of things that you can just jump into. So I hope you find this video somewhat inspiring to just go ahead and jump in and grab something. I think that these are great choices. If I had to pick one that I would recommend getting, it would probably be Maths. I really like Cumulus as an effect because it's just so nice to have reverb going from the sound studio, and this offers almost like a delay as well. So it's extremely accessible and easy to play with. Maths is kind of hard to wrap your brain around, but once you do, you will totally understand modular and feel very comfortable buying any other module. Pam's Pro Workout is also great. There is a lot of menu diving and you lose a bit of that fun of playing with knobs, and just it's very on the nose, but it's also really accessible. Platts is a great voice, and if you buy a Platts or Platts clone, I guarantee you that will be money well spent, that you will use that in a future build. Filters, I'd also recommend the filters because filters really color the sound in different ways. And this SEM filter sounds very different than the one that's in the Mother. I also have an After Later Popple, which is a Mutable Instruments Ripples clone, and that one is extremely transparent and sounds totally different than both of these. And so just playing around with different filters, the more experience you get, you'll start to hear differences in them. So I like this one because it's affordable, and once you get it, you will immediately realize how much a filter can sound different because it's very different than the one that's in the Mother. And lastly, this attenuator is just dirt cheap. It's so usable, especially because the Mother's LFO just goes crazy. It has a crazy range to it, so attenuating that can be really useful. And I should add too that I have these all stored in a Tip Top Audio Happy Ending kit. This was the first little rack that I bought. It's 84 HP. I still use it every now and then, and I'm going to build a wooden case around it. If you do go ahead and decide to buy some of these modules or any other module, I put affiliate links to Perfect Circuit in my description. I'd appreciate it if you could click through there. It's a great way to support my channel at no additional cost to you. I get a little tip every time someone purchases something, so I really appreciate it. You can get the Happy Ending kit there, Maths, you can get After Later audio stuff. I bought Pam's Pro Workout from them. They're a great company, fast shipping. Check them out. Either way, I hope you like this video. Let me know in the comment section what modules you would recommend to people, or what modules you use with the Sound Studio and the Mother. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.